Good evening, and thank you all for coming out on what I have heard is a messy evening. I haven't seen the outside since about 7:30 this morning, but thank you for coming to join us to celebrate the role of Melrose in World War II. In many respects, this evening has been a long time coming. Most immediately, we have been planning for tonight's event since early October, when we received the good news that Melrose High School was fortunate enough to be chosen as one of 30 organizations from over 400 applicants to host at no charge the new World War II Voices of Service exhibition put together by the Gilder Lehrman Institute for American History and funded through a grant from the Veterans Legacy Grant Program. The 7-panel traveling exhibition serves as both the inspiration for and centerpiece of this evening's event and is arranged in a circular pattern here around the space that we're currently in. I know some of you have already had a chance to start taking a look at those panels. In the larger scheme of things, this event marks the public return of the Melrose Veterans Memory Project, and you have no idea how happy it makes me to say that. We have been slowly rebuilding and gaining strength since the pandemic effectively shut down our community outreach activities in the spring of 2020. The student contingent of that group began actively meeting regularly in the fall of 2023 and has resumed some of our customary activities. We were able to send holiday cheer packages, to the Chelsea Soldiers Home last winter. We were able to mail care packages to 3 Melrose graduates who are serving in military units that are deployed overseas this year at the holidays. We have been continuing to transcribe letters written by a local sailor home to his family while he served aboard a minesweeper during the closing months of World War II. Those letters, as well as pieces of that sailor's uniform, can be seen in the artifact display located at our right in LC5. But this is our first large-scale public event in 5 years, and I am so happy to share it with every one of you. And in the broadest sense, we have been preparing for this event since the spring of 2007. I've been told I do things a little slow. But at that time, for the very first time, I brought students to meet with local veterans, specifically World War II veterans and a handful of civilians, to document their stories. Many of the transcripts and biographies that came out of that first round of interviews are also on display in LC5. Some of them actually for the very first time publicly. That event served as the birth of the Melrose Veterans Memory Project, and those Veterans in the Classroom events, as they came to be known, became an annual feature until COVID restrictions put them on hold. It is our hope to finally resume our Veterans in the Classroom gatherings in the fall of 2025. Kathy put me on the schedule. And that brings us back to tonight. The exhibition which has brought us together is titled World War II Voices of Service. And that theme of service to country and to community is something that ran deep in our World War II veterans. In fact, it is a theme near and dear to the hearts of almost every veteran that I have come in contact with over the last 18 years or so. Our keynote speaker this evening is certainly well qualified to address what it means to serve. Master Sergeant Paul J. Dyson retired just several weeks ago after serving our country as a member of the United States Army and the Massachusetts Army National Guard from 1995 to 2025. During his 30 years of military service, Master Sergeant Dyson held a number of leadership positions, including Battalion Non-Commissioned Officer in Charge, Lead Instructor, Branch Chief, Platoon Sergeant, Squad Leader, and Fire Team Leader. He served as a role model and mentor for younger soldiers, both informally and formally, teaching a wide variety of courses, including the basic non-commissioned officer course, officer candidate school, warrant officer candidate school, air assault school, and all versions of the Army instructor course, which, with all due respect, when written out, looks a little bit like a bowl of alphabet soup. I think the military might be the only organization that uses more lettered abbreviations than the educational system. In his civilian life, Paul Dyson is also no stranger to service. After graduating from the University of Massachusetts-Boston with a Bachelor of Arts in English in 2000, Mr. Dyson earned a Master of Arts in English at the State University of New York at Stony Brook in 2007. A lifelong learner, Mr. Dyson joined the faculty at UMass-Boston, rising through the ranks to become senior lecturer in the Department of English. The courses he teaches knit together his academic interests and his own life of service and focus on themes of war, trauma, patriotism, nationalism, and veterans issues, and include English 189G, War in Literature, and what I assume was honors.
That's correct.
Fantastic. 293, which was Warrior Culture and the Return to Society. Mr. Dyson also serves the university as faculty advisor to the Student Veteran Center, a position he has held since 2009, and as assistant undergraduate program director, a role he assumed beginning in 2023. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Master Sergeant and Senior Lecturer Paul J. Dyson.
Okay. My sergeant voice isn't going to be enough?
No, it's terrible in here.
Really? Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. So Lisa will appreciate the fact that a teacher myself, I know that if you're setting up technology, it might not always work, so you should tell a story while you're setting things up. I don't. So a number of years ago, I was at a veterans event on campus, and a gentleman who was a Vietnam veteran got up, and he had this big, unkempt Gandalf-looking beard that looked like maybe he had a flock of birds living in it or something. But he got up on stage, and the first thing he said was, April 21st, 1969, and then he introduced himself, and can you all hear me? Roger, cool. He introduced himself and went through his whole spiel. He'd served in the Marine Corps in Vietnam, did 2 tours, went through his whole sort of post-war life, and then at the end he went back and repeated the date and said that that was the day in which he had last shaved his face, and from the day that he got out of the Marine Corps, he never shaved again. And that, though it's not nearly as cool or as epic, I haven't touched my hair since January 14th. And I hope a few years from now, when I say January 14th, 2025, when my hair is as long as my wife's, it'll elicit a similar response. So. Really? Okay. All right. So I want to start by making some acknowledgments. Those of you in the room of veterans know, having been through change of command ceremonies, award ceremonies and such, that you always have to go in reverse order of rank. You know, Colonel so-and-so, Sergeant Major, blah, 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 blah. This is not in rank order because I don't know what anyone's rank is, so apologies. But first and foremost, I think it's appropriate to thank Miss Lisa Lord, history teacher here at Melrose. I'm sure you're all familiar with her. She was kind enough and thoughtful enough to reach out and invite me to be here tonight. Obviously, she's in charge of putting together what you see before you, and I want to applaud her and invite you to applaud her for the tremendous work that she's done for the community of Melrose. I've also got a list of folks that I want to thank and acknowledge, some of whom may be here, and those who are not here at least deserve acknowledgement. So Nora Soutsis, whom I just met recently, there you are. Principal Merrill. I don't know if you're here, Principal Merrill. He and I traded emails at the end of last year. Adam Delady, Superintendent. Melrose Veterans Service Director, Dr. Gail Jean Angelo. Hello. Melrose VSO, David Goss. Whatever they pay David, he's not making enough money. Chair of Veterans Advisory Board, Colonel Bob Driscoll, and retired firefighter from Melrose, my new best friend over there. And Mayor Jennifer, help me out with this, Grigoritis? Is the mayor here? Greg, right, I got it right anyway. And Liam, where's Liam at? Where's my boy Liam? Where are you? There you go. And my man Liam over there, who made sure I didn't get lost on the way in. Since this is my first time talking about military stuff since my retirement, I feel compelled to acknowledge four other people, whom I would very much like to be here if they were still with us. My paternal grandfather, Homer Saul Dyson, U.S. Navy, World War II. My maternal grandfather, Henry Gillard, United States Army, World War II and Korea. My uncle, Joseph Vincent, United States Army, Vietnam. And my longtime platoon sergeant, friend, and mentor, Sergeant Major Kevin Walsh, Kosovo and Afghanistan. Are there any veterans in the room? Thank you all for your service. I also want to express gratitude, this is my last shout out, to any Melrose High School students in the room. I want to personally thank you for being here. Your presence here also counts as an act of service and an act of observance and commemoration. This is important stuff, and I think if any of you are applying for attendance in universities soon, you should probably note this in your letter. Anyone who has served in the United States Army over the last 2 decades knows the Army values. As with the soldier's creed and the general orders, basic trainees are expected to commit to memory the 7 Army values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. The letter of each word spells out leadership, minus a couple of vowels. I'd like to focus my talk tonight on one of these values, the 4th value, selfless service. Though it is the 4th value listed, I think it is the most important of the 7, that without which not for anyone with a mind for leadership and a heart for service, military or otherwise. According to various Army publications, selfless service is about more than just one person. Those who serve in the military come to appreciate that service to the man or woman next to you, to your squad, to your platoon, to your company, to your battalion, to your brigade, to your division, to your branch of service, to your people, to your nation, is in the heart of all that we do. Service work, and I would extend that beyond the military to vocations like nursing and education, shout out to all the teachers in the room, requires that you do not just do the job, but that you be the job. I use the word vocation here instead of profession or career field deliberately. Vocation comes from the Latin vocare, meaning to call. Those who have vocations have heeded the call. In the case of veterans, nurses, and teachers, they have heeded the call to serve. While there is no need in my mind to create hierarchies of service work, I do believe that military service stands as distinct among other types of service work for 2 reasons. 1, members of our military do work on behalf of all Americans. 2, members of our military commit their whole selves to military service. Vacations and days off are not guaranteed. The needs of the military service always come before the needs of the service member. Members of our military sometimes go a year or longer without seeing their families or even setting foot on American soil. The artifacts in the exhibit that you'll be experiencing tonight reflect the dedication of the people who used them and wore them. We all know how hard and how well our soldiers, sailors, and Marines, because this predates the Air Force, fought in World War II, but I think it's also worthwhile to reflect on how these folks were away from their families, from their friends, from their country for which they were fighting for years, for multiple years in some cases. We do well to honor the bravery and sacrifices at Omaha Beach, at Bastogne, in the Ardennes Forest, just as we should honor the bravery and sacrifices at Khe Sanh and at Fallujah. But we should also honor the more modest, everyday acts of service, the core service work that over time makes a servant into a selfless servant, maintaining our bodies through exercise and discipline, maintaining our equipment and gear, building teams and cultivating relationships that make our military services stronger, learning to embody the values of service and to model them for others, honoring our nation, our founding documents, and all of our diverse and good fellow citizens. I'd be a terrible Army recruiter. It's not that recruiters lie. I think that that's largely a myth. It's just that I feel compelled to talk to folks about how much they'd miss their families and how much time they spend being bored. I'd probably also tell them that if they weren't sure that they wanted to be a soldier, then the Army might not be right for them. I'd never make my monthly quota for enlistments. However, it's a thankless job. However, As someone who has just ended his military service, I want to start recruiting people to service. Any type of service, paid or otherwise, full-time, part-time, or strictly on a volunteer basis. And here's my recruiting pitch. Service is an antidote to cynicism. Service is an antidote to the crisis of meaning that many intellectuals on both sides of the political spectrum believe has beset the West in the 2020s. In times of political upheaval, economic uncertainty, massive cultural shifts, not to mention multiple large-scale armed conflicts currently playing out on the international stage. The best thing that you can do right now is to try to help someone. Mr. Rogers, and I put a note here, anyone here who's a student at Melrose, I know who Mr. Rogers was? I know I'm dating myself. All right, props for those of you who know who Mr. Rogers was. But Mr. Rogers, there were rumors that Mr. Rogers was a Marine sniper in Vietnam and that he always wore those cardigans to cover up all his cool tattoos. That's not true. That's not true. He went to seminary and had a degree in music, I think. But still a wonderful man nonetheless, even if he wasn't hanging out with Gunny Halfcock. Mr. Rogers said, and I confirmed this on Snopes today, Mr. Rogers actually said this. Mr. Rogers said, "My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I'm always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in the world." I know a lot of soldiers. I know a lot of police officers. I know a lot of firefighters and nurses. I'm married to a special education teacher who is a veritable miracle worker. I know the people that Mr. Rogers calls helpers, and he's right. We should be comforted that we share communities with people like these. You cannot be cynical while being truly generous. You will not feel listless and purposeless while you are helping someone in need. The work gives you purpose, and the purpose gives you fulfillment. So I'm a teacher, and I'm going to give you a homework assignment. In the spirit of fairness, I'll do the assignment as well. I promise. My wife will hold me to it. All of us, every one of us, including me, tomorrow, do something kind for someone else with no expectation of so much as a thank you in return. Acts of kindness and thoughtful service are the very basis of a strong society. Bonus points if you go out of your way to be kind to someone who looks, who speaks, or who loves differently than you do. And don't worry too much about what kind of kindness it is. Dr. King reminds us that all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. If all you do tomorrow is hold the door for someone, do it not as an afterthought, but as if you were giving them a gift. I had a boss in the Army. He was my last boss. I took his job after he retired. Master Sergeant Bill Dufault. Whenever I think of him, before I think about his 2 Bronze Stars for valor, or about how strong of a leader he was, or about how effective and important a mentor he was to me, or even about how absolutely hilarious he is, I think about how he always took the trash out. Often the senior person in the office on a given day, who would have been well within his rights as a senior non-commissioned officer to literally tell anyone else present to do it. He always took the trash out, with no fanfare, with no, well, I guess someone has to do it. He just did it. We should all be more like Bill. My own little act of service had long been getting coffee from my team around mid-morning each day. While I don't think that I've been gone long enough for anyone to start to miss me, I think this will change around 10 a.m. next Saturday morning. The last thing I want to discuss is something that every veteran thinks about from time to time, and I think I have some authority to say this. How to respond when someone thanks you for your service. While I believe that military service is in some way the purest, for lack of a better word, form of service, we also get a lot in return, more than members of most other vacations, like teachers. Education and other financial benefits, accolades, public praise, and several holidays honoring us, including June 14th, the Army birthday. Cool. But service is its own reward, and I mean that. I'm sad that I know people who don't understand this, and I mean that too. I pity them. Still, people who serve are frequently thanked for their service. Sometimes it's perfunctory, sometimes it's sincere. When people thank me for my service, I have to stifle the urge to talk about the friends that I've lost to suicide. I stifle the urge to talk about my friends whose marriages didn't survive that second deployment in 3 years. I stifle the urge to talk about missed anniversaries, and in the case of some of my fellow soldiers, missed birthdays and missed births. I stifle the urge to tell them that I believe that I am unworthy of the same measure of gratitude as my friends who are no longer with us. For years and years, for decades, I didn't know what to say, and I'm pretty verbose. Sometimes, most times, I'd say nothing. I'd grunt pleasantly and nod exactly once. If I did respond verbally, I almost always said, "Thank you," but that never felt right either. The answer came to me late in my career, less than a year ago, in fact. One of my non-commissioned officers, one of my NCOs, recently promoted Sergeant First Class Emily Olson, a two-tour Afghanistan veteran, a firefighter, and a mother of two, came into my office and said that she had overheard me talking about my difficulty trying to find out how to respond to "thank you for your service." She said, "I just say, you're worth it." And she walked out. To this day, that's the only response that seems appropriate to me, and that's how I'll respond if anyone asks me for the rest of my days. All of this is to say that you should thank vets for their service, though only if you mean it and only if you want to. But please also understand that the responses will vary widely from vet to vet. I want to conclude by thanking you all for being here tonight and all the work that you do on behalf of your fellow human beings. May you find fulfillment in that work, and may you have peace in your hearts and in your lives. Thanks. Oh, I get stuff?
Not only is this our first public event, but this is our first fundraiser in 5 years. So we can't afford speakers' fees, but we do have a little something for you to remember this event and remember the Memory Project by.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
My students just cringed when they saw me coming back up here because they're like, "Oh God, she's coming back. We thought we were done with her for the day." I just came back to let you all know we are here if you're interested in taking a look at the panels, taking a look at the artifacts and the biographies that are in LC5. We do have the space this evening until 9 o'clock. We have a missing man table over here representing those who are not able to be with us this evening. We have a small display at the back representing the Tuskegee Airmen, and there are some handouts that you are welcome to take there as well. And we just want to let you know that we will, on March 27th, we have another event coming up. The Veterans Advisory Board and the Veteran Services Office is hosting a program to raise awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide. So it will be here in the same space from 7 to 9, I believe-ish. There'll be more information coming out in the papers and the media about that, but we just wanted to put that on your calendars while you're all here because teachers don't let a chance to remind you about other upcoming homework assignments. We don't let that go without taking the opportunity. So thank you again for coming out. Please feel free to enjoy the exhibits, and when you leave, please drive carefully. Thank you very much.